Imagine standing at the fault line of the natural world, where blistering savanna heat slams headfirst into Arctic ice, where two ecosystems collide that were never meant to touch. On one side stands a living tank, an elephant, towering, armored, and powerful enough to bend trees, crack earth, and rearrange landscapes with a single step. Every movement is mass in motion. Every footfall is a reminder that size itself can be a weapon. On the other side waits a cold-born predator. A polar bear, silent, patient, and engineered for survival in one of the most lethal environments on Earth. Built for endurance, stealth, and sudden violence. A hunter that thrives where mistakes mean death. This isn't speed versus speed. It's not claws versus tusks. This is mass versus mastery. Brute force versus surgical precision. Two evolutionary blueprints shaped by opposite ends of the planet. And if these two giants were ever forced into the same space, ice melting beneath one, dust swirling beneath the other, only one question matters. When nature's heaviest land mammal meets the Arctic's apex hunter, which design walks away? Elephants aren't just the largest land animals on Earth. They're walking supercomputers, built for memory, emotion, and frighteningly precise control. At the center of it all is the trunk. More than 40,000 individual muscles packed into a single limb, strong enough to rip tree trunks from the ground. Delicate enough to lift a single grain of rice without crushing it. That same trunk isn't just a tool, it's a language. Elephants use it to communicate, explore, breathe, and even express emotion. They touch, wrap, reassure, and comfort their calves with it like a living hand. Beneath their massive frames lies another hidden advantage. Shock-absorbing footpads that soften each step. They allow elephants to move far more quietly than their size suggests. But silence isn't the real trick. Those feet can feel vibrations moving through the ground. Low-frequency seismic signals traveling miles across the earth. Through them, elephants can hear distant herds, detect approaching threats, even sense storms more than 100 miles away. For an elephant, the ground itself becomes a communication network, turning the planet beneath their feet into an early warning system. When it comes to emotion, elephants aren't just intelligent. They're deeply aware. They can recognize themselves in mirrors. A rare sign of self-awareness shared by only a tiny handful of species on Earth. They understand who they are, and they remember who they've lost. Elephants grieve. They return to the bones of dead herd members years later, pausing, touching skulls and tusks with their trunks in quiet, deliberate gestures. Not curiosity, recognition. Their emotions don't stay hidden either. Temporal glands near their temples release chemical signals tied to stress, excitement, and dominance. It's emotional body language in scent form, broadcasting their internal state to the entire herd. And this intelligence isn't abstract, it's practical. Elephants intentionally use tools. They snap branches to precise lengths, turning them into scratchers, fly swatters, or defensive extensions. That isn't instinct alone, it's planning. Problem-solving shaped by memory, experience, and choice. Ecologically, elephants don't just exist in the wild. They engineer it. Their memories stretch across decades, passed from matriarch to matriarch, allowing herds to navigate drought-stricken landscapes using mental maps older than the elephants themselves. When water vanishes, elephants remember where it once survived. Hidden springs, dry riverbeds that still whisper life beneath the soil. Their tusks play a role too, elongated incisors that never stop growing. They dig wells when the land cracks dry, strip bark from trees, push over vegetation that blocks movement and light. Every action reshapes the environment, opening pathways, creating feeding grounds, building habitats for countless other species to follow. Remove elephants from an ecosystem and the consequences ripple outward. Forests choke with overgrowth. Water sources disappear. Entire food webs begin to collapse. In the truest sense, elephants don't just live in nature, they design it. Polar bears are survival taken to the extreme. built not just to endure the Arctic, but to dominate it. At first glance, they look white, but that color is an illusion. Each hair is hollow and transparent, acting like fiber optic cables that funnel sunlight down to jet black skin. Skin designed to absorb heat with ruthless efficiency. Every inch of their body is tuned for cold. Their massive paws spread wide like living snowshoes, distributing weight across fragile ice, providing grip on surfaces slicker than glass. But the real surprise lies beneath the surface. Those same paws are partially webbed, turning polar bears into elite open water swimmers. They can cover more than 60 miles without stopping, pushing through freezing Arctic seas, sometimes swimming for days straight. No rest, no warmth, just muscle, endurance, and an unforgiving will to survive. For polar bears, hunting isn't about speed or chaos. It's about patience sharpened into a weapon. Their sense of smell is almost unreal, so precise they can detect a seal breathing beneath several feet of solid ice from more than a mile away. Once the target is located, there's no reckless pursuit, no wasted movement. Polar bears often wait, completely motionless, hovering over a seal's breathing hole for hours at a time, burning almost no energy, letting discipline do the work. When the moment finally comes, the anatomy takes over. An elongated skull built for leverage. Razor-sharp teeth designed to slice through fat-rich meat. Even their tongues are specialized, covered in tiny gripping bumps that help scrape blubber from slick, struggling carcasses. And when a hunt succeeds, the reward is massive. A single feeding can mean consuming over 100 pounds of fat in one sitting. Fuel stockpiled for survival. Because in the Arctic, every meal has to last. For polar bears, survival isn't about constant aggression. It's about managing energy like a living bank account. Despite the cold, polar bears overheat easily. Even in sub-zero temperatures, their massive bodies generate so much heat that long chases can become dangerous. Burn too much energy, and the hunt becomes a liability. So instead of sprinting, they conserve. During lean seasons, polar bears slow everything down. Their metabolism drops. They live off thick layers of stored fat for months at a time. It's a strategy similar to hibernation, but without fully shutting the system down. Life continues, just carefully rationed. This efficiency starts early. Polar bear cubs enter the world tiny, blind, nearly hairless. They're born deep inside snow dens, sealed off from the Arctic night. There, their mother's fat reserves become life support, sustaining the cubs through the coldest, darkest months of the year. As adults, polar bears have no natural enemies. They rule the frozen north unchallenged, but their dominance is fragile. Their survival hangs on ice thickness, seasonal timing, and perfect energy balance, which is what makes them so dangerous. Not brute force alone, but precision survival engineering turned into flesh. If this encounter happens on elephant terms, the balance tilts instantly. Open land, solid ground, room to move. In that environment, the elephant becomes a walking catastrophe. An adult elephant outweighs a polar bear by several tons. Not pounds, tons. Its tusks function like living spears, capable of goring, lifting, and crushing with terrifying precision. This isn't fragile mass either. Thick skin, dense load-bearing bones, a body evolved to absorb punishment from horned rivals and environmental extremes. Even a glancing hit could be catastrophic. Elephants don't fight recklessly, but when they commit, it's explosive. They can charge at speeds exceeding 20 miles per hour, turning momentum into a blunt force weapon. A collision, not a contest. A polar bear's claws and bite are lethal to seals. But against an animal this large, damage would be slow, non-disabling, dangerously insufficient in the opening moments. On firm land, the elephant's reach, mass, and raw power dominate the equation. Here, it isn't just an advantage, it's an almost unstoppable force. But shift the battlefield, and the story changes. Cold replaces heat. Firm ground gives way to ice, slush, or open water. Now the polar bear steps into its element. This is where nuance replaces dominance. Polar bears are apex ambush predators, built for explosive acceleration rather than prolonged force. Their claws are razor sharp. Their bite is crushing, designed to puncture thick blubber and even bone. They're far more agile than an elephant, capable of rapid pivots, quick direction changes, precision strikes aimed at legs, joints, or softer tissue. In unstable terrain, size becomes a gamble. An elephant's massive weight turns into a liability. Ice increases the risk of slips. Cold accelerates fatigue. Momentum becomes harder to control. But even here, the polar bear faces an impossible equation. It must disable a living tank without getting crushed, without getting gored, without making a single mistake, because one wrong move ends everything. This matchup isn't really about skill versus skill. It's about physics. And in almost every version of reality, physics sides with mass. Unless the environment itself tips the scales, the elephant remains the most likely survivor. Not because it's faster or smarter, but because some forces are simply too big to stop. In the end, this hypothetical battle isn't really about who's stronger. It's about how evolution solves different problems. The elephant dominates through size, through memory, through raw physical authority, built to absorb impact, command space, and control territory simply by existing. The polar bear survives through efficiency, through patience, through lethal precision sharpened by scarcity, thriving in a world where every mistake is fatal. Put these two into the same arena, and physics tips the scales toward the elephant, but only because the environment bends the rules in its favor. Strip that advantage away and the equation tightens fast. What this clash really reveals isn't a winner. It's a truth about nature itself. Evolution doesn't create champions. It creates specialists. And when two specialists collide, the real victor isn't one animal over the other. It's the brutal, beautiful logic of evolution doing exactly what it was designed to do.